slender. Give me some man cave news. Seeing Idaho go blue makes me wanna puke. If you're a man, don't prance around like Daisy Duke. Get out of my state with your drag show, or toss the purse aside and put up your dukes. Get the truth from the man cave news, and chase away those petty-waist blues. Get the truth from the man cave news, and chase away those petty-waist blues. Get the truth from the man cave news.
And he kept standing. I was like, you gotta get down, boy. You gotta get down. They're gonna shoot you. Because if they would have had like a machine gun, they could have taken us all out. So then we laid there for a while. We saw different places where the gunshots were at. And then they got President Trump down, Secret Service did, and they took him out of there and got him off of the stage. And he was bleeding. And so then my son and daughter-in-law was back behind us, back behind the fence. And we was worried about them. We couldn't call them. And so we started trying to go after them then when they finally let us up. And they had been right by the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence. And by the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence.
All right. So, as I stated, there was going to be a follow-up to this. First, I want to clarify a couple of things, because the only pushback I've gotten so far has been that apparently some people have been under the wrong impression that I'm saying that it's a difficult shot, like 150 yards, a headshot. That's not my point. My point is, yes, it's not a particularly difficult shot. What I'm saying is, and let me make this extremely clear, the level of sophistication that this is on when it comes to, from the point of view administratively, you have to look at the big picture and how orchestrated this thing has been so far. When you look at the lawsuits against President Trump, okay, I've personally never seen anything like it. I mean, I have, actually. Maybe it's because I've seen real corruption in real time, real life, up close, that I was personally a party to the situation, you know, in local and state government, things that I've seen personally, that I have a very real understanding of just how corrupt and big and deeply things run. So the point I'm making is, if it is so obvious, which to anybody it should be at this point, anybody who has any illusion that this was not deliberately set up, when you look at and you understand, you can look at my first video and see every point that I'm making, that anybody that is protected by the Secret Service, if you're going to go and you're going to assassinate somebody at this day and age, especially since 1981, since Hinckley, I mean, till now, if you're planning to assassinate somebody, okay, you would have to find an exotic method. In other words, nobody realistically nowadays would think, I know what I'll do. I'll get a rifle and I'll get near an event, you know, where President Trump or President Biden, whoever it is, you know, and I'll find a spot they missed, and I'll be able to bring a ladder in and climb up with my rifle and everything within 150 yards with an open sight, line of sight shot. Everybody who has a brain in their head at this point knows that that's not even the approach somebody would even try to plan. And lo and behold, we got so lucky that the guy, this 20-year-old kid, supposedly, if we know if this kid exists, who he really is or anything, at this point, don't even think that you have any reliable information. There's no reason to believe you know anything about this kid, anything about him, who he is or whatever. We just know that there was some kid up on the roof. We see all that, right? If they're going to go to the level of the hugeness of this operation, which is to, from the executive branch, the White House, and President Biden has already said in interviews that I made sure that he's had the best Secret Service. I mean, it is the Biden administration that determines this stuff with the Secret Service. That is within their purview. Okay, so and he's already on record saying that, if you can still find it in the internet, it's probably going to disappear. Okay, if they're going to go to that level, my point has been all along, they're not going to leave it in to chance in the hands of some mixed up kid, whoever this is, hoping that he won't blow it. And people say, oh, he's gone to the range. Oh, you're long. He shot at the range. It's like, trust me, the point I'm making is I could take anybody out and I could mark off 150 yards, and we can put the size of a human head out there, and we can take from that video that the person that used their phone and said, hey, he's up on the roof, and you see him crawl, and then you count the amount of seconds until the shots were going off. This isn't time to sit down and line something up good. Okay, the point I'm making is people are trying to, it's kind of a macho thing. It's always like people are always talking that way. It's like when I was growing up and people, when they went hunting and they got a bull elk or they got a deer or whatever, and it was always like, it was 900 yards, and a crosswind or whatever, and it's like, first of all, I'm up in the hills. I've been shooting guns since I was a little kid, and there aren't yard markers out in the wilderness, okay, for one thing, and men tend to say their fish was this big, and whatever else they want to size is always really big, and the distance they went, and everything like that. And I'm just trying to be realistic. I'm somebody who's saying I have a ribbon that shows me qualified marksmanship, expert level military, and I'm just telling you that I'm not always the greatest shot, and under certain conditions, when it really counts, okay. The point I'm making is there are guys who were directly combat guys, and they're experts with weapons, and that wasn't my role in the military. That was theirs. And anybody that's been in combat will tell you that they have missed shots. Okay, so what I'm saying is there's that chance, and anybody that goes through the trouble that the deepest of deep state cabal people went through to set up this situation where the Secret Service did the unthinkable and the unprecedented ever in recorded history, right? And left the rooftop open, and now says that, well, we thought it was a dangerous roof to be on, so we put our people in the building. This is on record. This is what they're saying. That's why I tell people now is when you need to tune out. Don't listen to all the people. There are so-called experts coming out now, and they're snipers. They're former snipers. Well, snipers can be bought off, and they can lie, and they can pull the party line as well as anybody else. I saw somebody on Megyn Kelly the other day, and he was a former sniper, and he said unequivocally, he slipped it in there that the thought of this being like deliberate from the blah blah blah, he said, and there's no way this did not happen, and it went right over, and nobody challenged him on it. Everybody's saying that they're making declarations about something that hasn't even begun to really get deeply investigated, and the American public, some of the dullest people on the planet, the American public, who was okay with, you name it. You name it. I mean, Epstein. I don't even want to go into the details of that. But are Americans demanding answers? Are people freaking out? It's like all the cameras stopped working. I mean, I will happily deep dive into all of that later. Okay, the point I'm making is there would be a second shooter who was an expert shot, and he didn't, like snipers, they don't do this. They don't pop, 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 pop. They don't squeeze off a bunch of shots, okay? They line up a shot, and they make that one shot, one kill. They make it count. And what I'm saying is whoever the professional shooter was the one that got the bullet that actually found its target. Because the analysis that they're showing now on TV, and this thing that sucks is right now I got this arm thing going on because I have a lot of graphics I could show right now. But it takes me forever to work a mouse with my left hand. It's hard for me to add everything and edit the way I want in the video, so I apologize for the quality of the video. But we now know that basically he just turned his head at just the right angle, just in time, so that the angle of the bullet went basically parallel to his head, just hitting his ear. when if his head had been turned, it shows that it would have entered one of the lobes here. It basically would have been a clean headshot. It would have been a professional shot. And it would take nothing for, they wait, they hear the guy squeezes off a bunch of shots like an unprofessional person did. We know that bullets didn't hit their mark, right? That's my point. There was a spray of bullets, and they went here and there and everywhere. And if you notice on the news, they're not sharing with you where the other bullets landed. They're not showing video from the point of view of where Trump was. Why aren't they showing that? Also, how many people were there? How many people already had their cameras on their phones running in so many different directions? There are volumes and volumes of stuff out there, and what do we see? We see the same 5 or 6 videos that keep being played, and then the ones that got through. What happened to the rest of them? Is it like the Zapruder film in the Kennedy assassination that, Secret Service or FBI or whoever immediately seized people's film and never got it back? I mean, this is well-known stuff by now. This isn't, and let me say this too, to the people out there, when you preface what you're going to say with, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, what you're really saying is, I'm stupid. I'm just a dumb person. The term conspiracy theorist was a manufactured term by the CIA. This is recorded history. This isn't conspiracy stuff. You can look this up, so that it could be used for anybody that doubts the status quo, the official story, and then and like Americans, you just gobble it up and you repeat it. And basically, if you're not a conspiracy theorist, you're a stupid person, because conspiracy happens all the time. If you have ever believed in a mob story, when, Guido, he had an unfortunate accident on his way to court to testify today. It's just terrible. He had an accident involving a meat grinder and a cement maker, and, he sleeps with the fishes. I mean, come on, okay? You are a conspiracy theorist, and it doesn't matter. Quit prefacing everything you say with, well, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I am a conspiracy factualist, okay? Americans can't stomach the hardcore stuff. I think Americans don't really want to see the truth, because everybody's already kind of stepping back from it, and they're kind of like, they just don't want to believe that our government could possibly be to that level. Like it's a scary thought. It goes back to the people that say, well, the reason that they talk about UFOs, they won't share the truth, is it'll cause mass panic, which I have a whole thing on UFOs. You can look it up on my channel on the UFO thing, which is a totally different take. But it kind of goes to that. It's kind of like Americans, they just don't really want to know that things could possibly be that scary, but they really are. And I guess for some of us that have been the observant types their whole life, I'm 60 years old. I read the Franklin cover-up many years ago, a few decades ago. You read that book and it will open your eyes to what's going on now, so that some of us were not really surprised by the things that we found out. Like when the movie, what was it, The Sound of Freedom came out or whatever, like a lot of us were kind of like, yeah, we used to be called crazy. We didn't even share the stuff that we had researched and learned, because, people just want to call you crazy anyway. And that's what's going on here. People aren't why aren't they demanding answers? Why is the media not camped out and demanding answers from the Secret Service right now? Like, why was there this obviously deliberate lapse? Or if they don't want to characterize it that way, they can just say, how in God's name is it even possible that the classic shooter's nest point of view was overlooked? And I don't want to rehash everything I said in the same video, but this does not happen. This does not happen. And then they're trying to blame, you could see the narrative being played out and planted in the media, because they're all players in this, most of them. And you're hearing a lot of, I said early on, I said, you're going to hear the term lone wolf. I said that from the beginning. And what am I hearing over and over again? Lone wolf, lone wolf. It keeps popping up here and there. They're going to keep trying to push that. Why? You got to ask yourself why. Nobody knows yet. Like the smoke is barely cleared, and lone wolf, and there's no evidence. There's no. What do you mean? There's no. How can you make those kind of declarations? Everybody should be very suspicious. You know, when you compare that to people, if you're out there and you watch shows like The First 48 and these detective shows and these shows that you learn about murders and how detectives actually work cases and cold case files and things like that. And all that goes out the window on something like this, and everybody's like, well, I guess it was this 20-year-old kid, and and he's a registered Republican. I mean, boy, that's some really relevant stuff there, right? So my point being that they were going to have somebody there to make sure the right shot got in there. If the kid got lucky, if he did get a shot in that grades, I mean, it's possible. I don't think so. I think the kid got up there and started spraying lead, and within those shots, 90% of everybody's not even going to notice. And there's so much stuff. You can study the Kennedy assassination. You can study so many different situations. And then think about it from the point of view of if you were going to pull it off, how would you do it? If you could compromise the Secret Service, which they obviously have been compromised, and how would you do it? Well, if you're going to do that, you got to have a scapegoat. You got to have somebody somehow that looks like a crazy got in there and somehow pulled off some shots. But it is so vital to them that Trump gets taken out, and I'm telling you, it's going to be proven true. I know this. Everything seems to keep supporting it as time goes on, that he has so much of the goods on so many people, and they are so frightened, that deep state, that cabal, they are so terrified of actual real indictments, real justice. When you have President Clinton flies to Pedophile Island something like 24 or 26 times after he said he denied even going there, and the flight logs show he's gone there between 20 and 30 times, several times without Secret Service. America, do you remember that? Did you know that? Did you just overlook it? Yeah, because the media says it's no big deal, right? This is the same Bill Clinton that reappointed a coroner in Arkansas who ruled as a suicide somebody getting beheaded. America doesn't bat an eye, okay? Because you don't pay attention. You don't pay attention. Vince Foster, that's a good one. Read about Vince Foster. Okay, after he commits suicide, Hillary Clinton's staff goes in immediately afterwards and cleans out his office. And America is like, oh well. She destroys 33,000 emails that are subpoenaed actual evidence. Okay, so, I mean, if you're one of those people, you're not going to be paying attention. But beyond that, beyond the outrage that should be there, the point I'm making about this, and I'm going to reiterate it because I just showed footage, and there's more out there, and I'm going to track down as much as I can, and I save everything to hard drives. I've been doing it for many years because the internet makes things go away. But this person in this interview is saying, as a matter of fact, the second shooter. In fact, they're not saying, I think there was a second shooter. They're talking about it as if it's known, because you know that there's probably a number of people that heard, and there was that water tower. That water tower, how classic is that? We also know the water tower wasn't covered. It wasn't secured. Duh. Okay, so two vantage points not secured. And martial law was going to be called after that headshot happened so that they could obfuscate all of this stuff. That's the only reason that they've done this blatant stuff, because they didn't think it was going to be out there and naked like this for everybody to see. So now you're starting to hear the narrative that, well, it was outside the perimeter, which is laughable. Do I have to explain how 150 yards of vantage point, like a classic shooter's nest area, would be outside the perimeter? It's not. Of course it's not. And then now you're hearing the narrative that, well, they work with local law enforcement, and outside of there, that would have been under local law enforcement. Why? What would the motive be? Let me think. The motive might be something like this. If it goes back to local law enforcement, guess who is not drawing the attention and your focus? That most of you are just going to go gobble up and not pay attention like you're supposed to do. Because the focus would not be on who? The Secret Service, who is under the purview of whom? The executive branch, the United States federal government, right? I'm terrified for local law enforcement that are going to be scapegoated possibly for this. And I'm really worried. Watch in the future and you're going to start seeing people are going to start dying of suicides and weird accidents and things here and there that are going to be little names that are going to pop up connected with this. Probably in local law enforcement, possibly in Secret Service, right? So even if it is under the responsibility of local law enforcement, the Secret Service orchestrates all that. I mean, basically, they answer to the Secret Service, and the Secret Service makes the call. If everything isn't up to snuff 100%, it's called off. It's called off. The president's taken off the stage. Okay, we now know that. I'm finding out now that, like, the guy on the roof, apparently there were pictures or somebody citing him 30 minutes before shots rang out. This is not shaping up to be anything other than a deliberate action by the United States government. 100%. There's no question about this. 30 minutes? So everybody knew he was there. People were freaking out. And again, this goes back to people would say, well, geez, Don, why would they do that? Because it would be so obvious. And my point is because that would have been the classic case of calling in martial law, because rightfully so, they predicted that if Trump would have taken the headshot and been assassinated, all hell would break loose in this country. It would literally mean civil war, because we would know, everybody would know this what happened here. And once you declare martial law, Biden's going to go beyond even the parameters of what martial law provides, and all the news, all the information is going to be shut down. It's going to be controlled, curfews, and then the new news stories are going to take the attention away from the assassination, because all the news is going to be about all these riots and stuff taking place. And it's going to be kind of like they're going to try to make a January 6th hoax sort of thing work way better on steroids, because they're really going to have the real ire of the American people. There's going to be people like me. I would have been outraged. People were going to be down in the downtown Boise. People would have been down there protesting, and that creates that chaotic environment where they can launch any kind of a false narrative that they want to try to launch. So that was my point. You know, people want to quibble over, you know, well, it's not that hard a shot and stuff like that. It's like, yes, it's within the realm of possibility. I never said it wasn't. What I'm saying is, from the point of view of a military operation, from the point of view of any of this kind of stuff, you know, are you going to go through and do something this humongous, this bold, this sophisticated, and then just be like, well, I hope this 20-year-old messed up nerd, basement nerd kid is able to crawl around on the roof and get over the crest of that roof in time, which it looks like from the video and the timing. He wasn't even in position until just before he shot, and then there was several shots squeezed off. You know, that's not something I would count on if I wanted to make sure that Trump was assassinated, right? You would have that guy in the water tower, which is starting to look like where the professional was that I spoke of in the first video. You would want him there, and he's basically smooth and cool, and he's got it lined up, and it's a much harder shot, which is okay because we're talking about a professional here. And without Trump turning his head, from everything I've seen, it was well within, say, the quadrant of that, the upper, you know, if from where I'm facing, it would be my left, the upper left quadrant. It was well within sight. It was a kill shot right in here, and it ended up being this instead. So that's very impressive shooting from the water tower. That's that's doable, but that's like a military sniper level of professionalism. So the element of, if you don't believe in God, call it whatever you want, of chance that he said that, went off script, and he turned his head just at the exact same nick of time. And there is some overhead, some great graphics I wish I could share, but with one hand I'm not able to do too much right now. But pay very close attention to what they're not sharing, all the interviews that they're not doing. How many people were there? It's like, what, thousands of people there? I don't remember. You know, why are we seeing so little now? What are you seeing a flood of? You're seeing a flood of talking heads in the media, the news people, right? And they're bringing up all these people, and they're using the word expert a lot. And a lot of these experts, especially in the conservative, we're talking the fifth column type. What do they call them? It's a good term for it. It's like controlled opposition. They're saying a lot of things that you want to hear if you're a conservative, and if you're skeptical, they're saying things like, the DEI thing, which is a very real thing. But the DEI thing is a diversion, because they know you'll get into that, because you'll start saying, well, that's wrong. You should hire people on their merits and blah, blah, blah. That's all set up. That's to make you start paying attention to that. If you start saying it's DEI, they're happy with that. What they want is the attention off of that. And if you look at it through the prism, and just imagine, just for me, pretend like the case is that they really did do this. And then start looking at the interviews and the tension and the angles people try to get in that get pushed away all the time, and you'll see that everything is being very well coordinated to divert any attention away from the suggestion that this was deliberate and it was right straight down from the Biden administration, because it is so heavily discouraged to even talk about, and they get nervous. And in the conservative media, what they do is they throw you a bunch of bones. They throw you the stuff you agree with. They know is BS, and they know you'll hear it, and you'll run with it. DEI and the head of the Secret Service, she's a joke. She's an absolute joke. She's terrible. There's no question about that. But that set up the scene perfectly. And then here's the other thing. They'll talk about funding. They're not getting enough funding. That's what it is, and blah, 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 and stuff. And then you'll be mad about that. Well, that's not fair. How come they're not funding, Trump as much? That shows that, Biden doesn't care. And it's like, it fits perfectly, because they want you, again, what did I say? To take your eye off the ball. They want your eye off the ball. All I'm asking is, humor me. Very few will. Humor me. From the very start, I said that that's what this was. That's exactly what this was. And nothing, not one thing, has come along to make it seem less likely. And again, when you hear anything about any audio analysis of the shots, you're going to hear from this point forward, you're going to hear everything you're going to hear. All the forensics is going to be coming from who? It's going to be coming from the Secret Service, the FBI. It's going to be coming from the federal government, who we know is controlled. We know, what was it? How many ex-intelligence officials said that the Hunter Biden's laptop was a Russian hoax? Okay, so don't think that, what they're going to do is they're going to do a bunch of phony analysis and say there's no evidence at all to show that there was any other gunshots coming from anywhere, but, and most of you Americans will just gobble it up and say, well, they looked in the official. And you're going to discount people like this stray interview here, which this is an interview. Like, how come there isn't a huge thing being made about this? They want you to forget about it. Will you be able to find it online? That's the beauty of X and Elon Musk, and that's the beauty of citizen journalism, and that's why they hate X so much. It's because everybody's able to share and follow each other, and too many things are slipping through, which is fantastic. I believe it's from the grace of God. Just consider everything I said. I mean, before anybody takes a knee-jerk approach, try to consider the totality of what I'm saying. You have to learn to start looking at the big picture. and I have been big picture, deep dive, analyzing everything since about the age of 9 or 10, and it's all in here, and it's all starting to kind of click into place, and you start learning to know what to look for. And sure enough, oh, it's lone wolf. Let's talk about this kid. Let's get you thinking about this kid and talking about this kid, and you know, it's like, it's incredible. I mean, when you look at evidence that's been tossed out, all the material that's been deliberately concealed, and nobody denies this, about 911, about the Oklahoma City bombing. You know, I'm not talking about stuff that some guy said late at night on the internet. I'm talking about stuff that people don't even dispute. Why? Because they don't have to. Because they know if they give you, the American public, more than 5 minutes, you'll be on to the next thing. You know, what are people complaining about now? They're flipping out because the wrong people are speaking at the RNC. It's like, give it a rest. You know what I mean? Oh, they had somebody on there that wasn't a Christian that said a prayer and stuff like that, man. It's just a convention, all right? You're not going to get everything you want exactly how you want in the convention, okay? Trump picked J.D. Vance. I'm cool with it. So far, Trump seems to know more of what he's doing than the rest of us, okay? And look for those pundits. Look for the conservative pundits, and look for the people that are going online now that are not like dogs after a piece of meat on what's going on with this assassination. Instead, they're going on and complaining because that chick with the shaved head gave a speech and she's pro-abortion or whatever, and oh, the RNC is going woke and this and that. And it's like, dude, this is like, we got way bigger fish to fry than to worry about that. That doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. You know, Trump knows all this stuff. He's got this. He sees all this. He sees it way before you ever did. He plays like 6D chess, and nobody gets that yet, you know, and it's unreal, you know. Like, I didn't really care to listen to that Sikh prayer that they had or whatever, but I'm thinking, this is just imagery, show, and stuff like that. This isn't the deep core stuff, and I think we can get past that. It's like, why are you even using your energy towards that? Why are you trying to draw people's attention to Nikki Haley or somebody, you know, that spoke or whatever? And it's like, you know, I'm not a fan of her, and nobody's ever going to be. Her career's over. Doesn't matter. You know, it's like, this is just the way things go. It's like, it's never good enough for some people out there. It's never good enough. I know people in Idaho. I know people that are instrumental in Idaho politics that are like, I'm not voting for Trump because he did this wrong and that wrong and all that. And it's like, in hindsight, you know, because they don't want to win. They want to be a purist, and they have an ego issue or something like that. You got to learn which battles to fight and which ones to realize aren't battles. It's just for show. You're looking for the core stuff, the important stuff. The important thing is Trump needs to get in there. So if he sounds soft on abortion, he has greased the wheels for us to be able to take abortion away for good by doing everything that he's done. Okay? It was a smart move for him to say, I'm giving it back to the states, which is literally what happened. Okay? But no, you've got people out there that he should be demanding, you know, and it's like, do you really want everybody's attention to go that way? That's what they want, so that they can campaign on that. He just took that away from them. Do you understand strategy? I don't think most people do. He took that away from them, okay? And that opens the door for us in the individual states to really start opening up and exposing things like abortion and gender deforming care and things like that for what they really are. You can't have everything perfect the first time. So anyway, I'm going down too many rabbit holes here to begin with, so I'll go ahead and end this. But pay close attention. Pay close attention to the two-shooter thing. Just put it in the back of your mind and say, just for fun, I'm going to pretend like that's exactly what happened, and they did this. And then look at all the coverage through that prism, and tell me if you can't see that there's definitely a very huge effort to try to steer anything and everything as far away from that as possible, and to divert your attention to other things, especially when you see conservative pundits coming up and they want to make a big issue about something right now that is just so irrelevant, because they want to get you arguing about whether or not Nikki Haley should be a speaker at the RNC. They want to get you to talking about what's her name with the shaved head, the model chick that got up there and gave her little speech. That's something we should really be complaining about and making a big deal about right now. Okay, those people, you need to either suspect them as being on the payroll, so to speak, or people that are definitely not somebody you want to look deep to for analysis. You can always mine good information from a lot of people, but there's a lot of people you need to just remove from the list as far as trust goes, like Glenn Beck and Sean Hannity, and there's a very long list. And when they make that peculiar little case on something, there are probably people who are being allowed to be as conservative as they can be, and then they come to a stopping point where they're said you can't go any further. That's why Tucker Carlson is no longer on Fox and Sean Hannity is. Okay, Fox is very controlled. That's why you can't criticize George Soros on that network. They keep wanting to show you have two choices. You have two choices, and the reality is you have a lot more than two choices. But if they can keep you focused and keep you gobbling up just what Fox News gives you, because they'll give you some good stuff, but they're going to make sure and try to steer and leave a certain amount of things out. And you can look to Fox News. They're going to definitely do everything to make this thing look like an outrage. It's bad. They're going to even be sort of pro-Trump now. But I guarantee you they're going to do their part to make this whole thing look like, if you think that this is a coordinated effort, this assassination attempt, I mean, come on. I mean, you're not saying that, are you? Because that's all it takes is to be approached that way for most Americans to go, well no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's kind of odd. That's all. What do you mean odd? All right, don't fall for it. Learn to smarten up. Pay attention. Don't take your eye off the ball. I'll have a lot more when I'm able to edit a lot more, but I've already got a ton of stuff that I've saved that's going to 100% back up every single thing that I've said in this. And so far it seems to be coming pretty true.
Not confused about my gender. If you be stuck, get someone offender. Cause I'm fat and tough as nails, not queer and slender. Give me some man-made news. Seeing how the whole go blue makes me wanna puke. If you're a man, don't prance around like Daisy Duke. Get out of my state with your drag show, or toss your purse aside.